Chapter 10. A month passed quickly, and everyone had fallen into an easy routine. She had started to broaden her activities with the men, except Julius. They always took an evening walk, although their walks took hours now. He wanted to see all of her favorite places, and she wanted to see his. Each night they went somewhere new in the world. One day she and Liam arrived at a place where boundaries had to be set between them. He had asked for a sports car to be brought around and told Sawyer he would like to go for a drive instead of riding. She let him pick whatever car he wanted, and he had picked a Mustang. They got in, and as soon as they hit the roadway, he started speeding up, and within seconds he was driving well over 100 miles per hour. He was taking the curves dangerously fast and just being reckless. "Liam, what are you doing?" she asked uncomfortably. "I'm seeing what this car can do," he answered. "I don't like it. Please slow down," she asked. "Come on, live a little. Neither of us can be hurt. We can crash and still walk away. Live on the edge a little," he said. "Slow down and take me back right now," she said angrily. "Don't be scared. I won't let anything happen to you," he said, and rubbed her knee condescendingly. At that moment he took a curve too fast, and they shot off the side of the road. The car started to roll, but Sawyer caught it in a bubble and kept it upright. They slid to a stop, slamming their heads. She got out of the car, fuming mad. "What were you thinking?" she yelled. "Calm down, we're fine," he said nonchalantly, and then screamed, "What a rush that was!" "Are you really stupid, or are you just pretending to be?" she asked angrily. He was startled by the question, as she would have been if he had slapped her. "What? Why would you call me stupid?" "Because you're careless with other people, Liam. You and I may be hard to hurt, but what if someone else had been driving by when that happened? What if I hadn't caught the car and you would have been hurt? You had you would have had to hurt someone to heal yourself. I asked you to stop and you ignored me, and how I felt about the situation you had put me in. You are selfish and careless. You have had centuries to grow up, and yet you haven't matured a day since your change. You are nothing more than a spoiled young lord still, and it's stupid because you could have been so much more," she answered. "So you would have had me be more like Lucas or even Marcus and Julius, is that it? Serious all the time? I wasn't given this life to sit by and waste it by letting the world pass me by. I was given this life to have fun, and so I will," he said angrily. "No, Liam, you weren't given this life at all. It was forced on you out of revenge. You were turned as punishment. You can pretend it was your choice, but we both know it wasn't. Instead of learning a lesson from it, you choose to defy it," she said icily. "How dare you speak to me like that?" he said, furious now. "I dare because I seem to be the only one who will. You pretend this is all your choice because it makes you feel better, but everyone knows the truth. You not only destroy your own life, but out of revenge you destroy all those around you, to pay back a girl long dead who changed you," she said. He was so angry by then he came after her. He meant to grab her by the throat to make her stop talking. He wanted to make her afraid of him so she would never dare speak to him like that again. He moved fast as lightning, but was surprised at how much faster she was. In a split second it was she that had him by the throat. It was she who made him stop talking. She held him up and looked directly into his eye. "You dare threaten me again, Liam, and I will show you my full power. All the girls you have encountered may have been charmed by your behavior, but I assure you I am not one of them. I am neither charmed by you nor afraid of you. Change or do not, I don't care either way, but you will always show me the same respect I have shown you." She then threw him back against the car and said, "Get in, I'm driving now." They drove back in complete silence. When they arrived, Sawyer instructed the staff to have the car looked at, and then left Liam without a word. The whole house could see something had happened, but no one wanted to ask either of them what it was. It took a few days to mellow their anger towards one another, and they were barely civil to one another while they were riding. This this time worried Hunter the most. She knew Liam was full of passion, and while most men didn't like to fight, his feelings became deeper from fighting. She knew his pattern was to be angry and then to soften. It was when he softened that he fell in love more deeply. She watched their tension with growing apprehension. She felt like she was losing him. She felt helpless, and she knew she needed to do something desperate to regain his attention before it was too late. Liam and Sawyer finally had a long talk while out riding a few days later. They not only repaired their friendship, but it grew stronger after that. She was finally starting to get the real Liam, the one most people didn't see. Underneath the careless and selfish personality was a man who carried an incredible amount of guilt. Sawyer found herself growing closer to him every day because away from the crowd he was truly a good person. She and Lucas had never been one to butt heads. They were like the same side of a coin. They played music and went swimming. They did archery together and once even baked cupcakes for the staff. They spoke easily of everything and laughed always. Somewhere in the month together he had become her best friend. Well, besides Cassia. She trusted him completely and had shared with him all of her fears about what would happen on the night of her soul sting. Their favorite thing to do at the end of their time together was to lay on the grass and look at the clouds. That was when they shared their secrets. In her heart, she knew she would be lucky if he became her soulmate. Marcus was the one who challenged her intellect, and she loved learning from him and hearing his stories of war. He taught her ancient games she had never even heard of, and learned he was indeed a master of strategy. He never spoke of their childhood in Rome, and through him she got to know Cassia and Julius better. He rarely spoke of the bad things, but when he did, he spoke of them with honesty and self-reflection. She was allowed into a place few knew existed in him. He told her of the night Titus was killed, and the shame he felt that he had let Julius bear the burden of it all. He was ashamed that he had let Julius do it alone, when he should have been just as willing to protect his sister. He spoke of the disgust he had when they would attack a village or town, where he just stood by and watched as women and children were taken as slaves. He spoke of the horror of war and the helplessness he felt watching his parents mistreat Julius. She always let him talk, because she realized he had never said these things to anyone. She had been gifted as the keeper of his secrets. She could tell he was trying to atone all these centuries in the way he had treated people now. Where others saw manners, she now saw the guilt of a Roman soldier. Where others saw calmness, she saw the guilt of a brother who had felt he had let down both of his siblings. He had tried to become the dependable one as a way to atone to them both. He felt he had failed them somehow. He grew closer to her without realizing it, and never understood why he felt so comfortable in speaking his hidden thoughts to her. He just knew that in her presence he felt free. He knew he could trust her, and soon she trusted him just as much. To the others, their time together looked almost boring. No one could understand how they spent hours just talking and playing chess. No one had bothered to notice the strong bond that they had developed. Julius was different from the others. When Sawyer spent time with him, it was always in a different location, and they had developed an ease in traveling together. She had shown him an ancient forest that hadn't been touched in centuries. The trees were so tall and thick they blocked the sky above. She took him to a cave that had an underground lake in it. An earthquake had blocked the entrance millennia ago, and the remnants of a tribe remained frozen in time perfectly there. They spent hours looking at the artifacts and paintings on the wall. It had become one of Julius's favorite places. He had taken her to cities all over the world that he loved. They had dined on lamb in Scotland and walked through the beautiful plains of Ireland. They sat on opulent rugs and sipped strong coffee in Istanbul. They watched the changing of the guards and climbed to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Their journeys were endless, and Sawyer, who had always loved the beauty of the earth, was surprised to find Julius enjoyed it also. They didn't have long conversations, and they didn't speak of their fears or thoughts. She didn't push him to share himself with her the way the others did. She just let him be who he was and figured that when he was ready he would share. He had become comfortable with her for that exact reason. Most women he had known and spent time with always wanted to know what his feelings were, and if he was honest with himself, he wasn't too burdened with many of them. He had learned long ago they were useless and only caused trouble. He knew anger, and he knew how to deal with that emotion. He and Marcus would recount the place in the evening that he and Sawyer had gone that day, but he never attached any emotion in the retelling of it. In the late evening, Sawyer and Cassia would spend their time together. They had become like sisters, and Cassia had become Sawyer's greatest confidant. They were now a month away from Sawyer's birthday, and then the full moon would follow. Everything would change for Sawyer, and she wasn't certain she was ready for it yet. She wished she could freeze this moment in her life. She was getting to know all the men, but there wasn't one she could say with any certainty that was her soulmate. She enjoyed them all for different reasons, and Cassia would patiently sit and listen. Then Cassie would talk and tell tales of being a young woman in Rome. She hinted on occasion about her marriage, but could never bring herself to tell everything about it. One night she confessed to Sawyer she wanted to tell her everything, but couldn't bring herself to say what had happened to her out loud. She asked Sawyer to view the memory of it. Sawyer saw what had been done to her and knew no woman should ever have to endure the things he'd done to her. Sawyer's eyes flowed with tears as she watched what happened to her friend. She then told Cassia how amazing she was because not only had Cassia survived the horror of it, but she had released most of the pain from the memory. Sawyer had held her best friend then as she had confessed that she had never let herself have another relationship again after that because she didn't trust herself to see any man for his true self again. Cassie and Sawyer would sometimes go to the Fey Realm together. Slowly Cassia was regaining her confidence in herself that her husband had taken from her so long ago. They would talk late into the night and make plans for things they wanted to do in the future. They planned a trip to Paris together when the dust settled on Sawyer's future. They would talk late into the night, falling asleep together in Sawyer's giant bed. This was the calm before the storm that was coming. These nights before it happened, Sawyer would wake up with a sense of dread. She would walk to the window and assume that the feeling was from her soulmate. He was also prone to the feeling that something bad was about to happen, and his concern was immediately to protect Sawyer. He felt like something was coming for her. Hunter would also look out the window as she formulated her plan.